It is my favourite season. We are up to part 7 in this fantastic season. That is maybe my favourite season as well. I did absolutely love it, but certainly the favourite season of Neil Atkinson, Martin Fitzgerald and Steve Graves, who are joining me now. We are up to late March. We are up to Wednesday night. It was a 2-1 against Sunderland, and yeah, I remember just being such a nervy one because Gerald scores a really good direct free kick in that way that he'd sort of stopped doing. Sort of late. The ones he did score always seemed to be like little flicks first or whatever, but he just puts it right in the top corner. And Sturridge scores in the kind of goal that a lot of people miss straight after the second half. And then we're all fine. We haven't played amazing, but it looks like we just won to get through. It's a rare Wednesday night game. It's probably our last one, actually. Probably also our last midweek game from this point to the season. And then they get one back, and the crowd goes to pieces in the way that the players have spoke about since the Dustin heading. John O'Shea, that header, I'm convinced he's going to score, but we hold on.
Yeah, I said before, and Fulham was the one that sort of most worried me. But remembering this one, the way in which it went, I was very calm against Cardiff. It's a night game. I feel like there's weather, but I'm not 100%. But I also remember the vibe of it's one to get through. It's one to get through is the big part of this. But it then becomes potential massive sting in the tail. Sunderland are having such a funny season. They keep doing really well in games that you least expect. And then all of a sudden 2-0, and it does feel like we're just sort of trying to manage it out. And then I think it's one of them where really, if the players didn't like the fact that we acted like all hell had broke loose, they should have maybe ensured that all hell didn't break loose. There's some times on this one where I will think, we need to look at ourselves and reassess. And then from time to time, I will occasionally say, lads, they really did feel back in it, Sunderland. You can't argue with 2-1. I don't think it's nervy before 2-1.
No.
And then I think it is unspeakably nervy at 2-1. Is that what you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, we do there's a coach welcome. This is the first one. And I think it's almost the first one in living memory. Almost the idea that that we've, for a league game at least, where we've gone, this is on. And the whole crowd have gone, this is on. And part of the reason the heads go is they've gone, we did that. We did the coach welcome. We've built up the fact this is on. This is a big night. And then you've given us nerves now. And I think people don't react well to that when you do set something up to be the biggest game ever. And whereas I think the players, like with Sunderland at home, I think we'll be okay. I think the free kick is one where probably the players should have been sent off, and it's a great feeling when you go from aggrieved to joyous immediately. I think it was Virginie for Sunderland should have gone. Gerrard just lashes it in, and then Sturridge's goal is a lovely goal, and then you think, well, we've done it now, and then you haven't, because Ki-Sung-Young was a quite an important player for them around that time, and I think he scores a couple of goals against like City and stuff. He's one of those like really shines at a side that's maybe not the best side in the league. We give them every encouragement, I suppose, ultimately to come back into the game. But we're new to this, we're all getting used to this as fans as well. The best part of this game for me is I was in the old main stand, and I found there was a little bar that was like you'd have to know it was there, like a little bar tucked away. Probably a couple of rows above the paddock. I must have been with Mike Gurney actually, which went on to be my. No, okay, of course, because I was on my season ticket with Mike then. I was with Mike then. I found a little bar, and it was one of the only ones that did draft Guinness at the time. I think now that Guinness have got on, now that Guinness are they're a ruthless customer service machine these days. But back in the day, there wasn't a thing that came up from underneath that did a Guinness or whatever. You couldn't find ways to do Guinness that weren't doing Guinness. So it was that little tiny bar, and that felt like a win at half time. And then we came back out and Sturridge scored, and you're like, well, nothing could be better than this. And as it turned out, it became fraught. But I think it was one to get through. The fact that the coach welcome, I think, puts it in context that people were onto it now. People were really onto it, and then that adds another dimension. Suddenly there's pressure once you're onto it. Once you think we've got something to let slip here, even though we're not top, still, we're there or thereabouts. We're the coming force, and the last thing you want to be when you're the coming force is to stop coming. And we potentially were about to, but we didn't.
Sorry, go on, Mark.
And I was going to say, of course, those hidden bars then became all the rage. So another thing about this season, which
The old main stand was way
forget,
ahead.
is that all of those bars that look like dry cleaners that you go in there and you push the door.
Bury and Rising's unspoken role in this season. Needs discussing at some point. I mean, it's
but it all started in the main stand with the first speakeasy hidden bar, and then they were doing it everywhere, all across the country. I have zero memory of this game at all, which either means I was there, I wasn't there, or it wasn't on telly, but I have no memory of it.
It might not have been on telly.
I don't think
you
it
might
was
be
on
right.
telly.
Yeah.
So I might not have gone. It seems unlikely, but I don't remember it.
Maybe I had something on the Thursday. Big meeting.
Unlikely.
And
I think back at my career in the mid 2010s.
I mean, Sunderland were ended up sort of having a major role in the season. They have a week where Connor Wickham just realises all his potential and more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mad to think with Connor Wickham that we tried really hard to sign him. Well, it seemed like we tried really hard to sign him. He ends up not coming to Liverpool, obviously, but this week you can sort of see why everyone was looking at him and everyone was talking about him. And by this week, I mean they wanted to come. You know, they played Chelsea and Man City in the same weekend. Beat Chelsea away and draw with City, but winning till about 87, I think, and then Nasri scores. But we were sort of fine with that at the time, like it's still sort of taking points off them.
That rings a bell, because I remember in a Norwich game, which is towards the end of the season, in the away end, we just sang that Fabio Borini song.
Yeah.
So the whole game. Because I think
Borini scores in the game against City.
Yeah.
Borini and Wickham scored against City, and then Wickham gets both of them against Chelsea, and they win.
He does something prior to Norwich, which made us sing.
Made us, you know, to put us in a great position. So Sunderland are a good team in that way, that, you know, and can cause you a bit of a pain. But yeah, I think John O'Shea breaking my heart would have been a bit too much.
For the second time, I point out from O'Shea. I think there's something in. Well, I think Wickham's an interest. I think you get a few of these. You get fewer of them these days, and I think that more players realise their potential these days. But it's just sort of worth saying. There's even now, I think it's true, obviously, but there is just difference in coaching. And I think back then, difference in coaching, difference in facilities. I'm not putting down anyone's professionalism. Don't get me wrong, but I think that there's now more uniformity in terms of level of things like that. Whereas literally which club you went to at which time, in terms of what you were getting from, not just from the coach, the head coach or the manager, but also just the whole setup, who was there. You know, I think that now that happens a little bit less. But I think back then, and obviously years prior to that, you know, the right player signs for the right club at the right time, things can chime a lot quicker. And you know, if Wickham had signed for a different player, he might have a genuinely markedly different career, where he was showing that on a regular basis. But
who was the manager at Sunderland in this season?
Oh, I don't know. I might tell me.
Ricky Sprager?
I think it might be Di Canio in this run.
Is it Di Canio?
Di Canio rings a bell. Yeah, manager. Oh, no, Poyet. So Di Canio is the manager early. He gets sacked after a month, and then Poyet takes over from October onwards.
And I think the general thinking was that Poyet was a smart, was a smarter operator, and there's some truth to that, I think. And you know, and he was maybe seen
slightly less emotional.
Yeah,
and he was still incredibly emotional. Slightly less.
But I think that's where it ends up, this one. You know, with Wickham, I think that they're a funny side, and that they're full of players who've all looked as though they could play at a slightly higher level at different times. You know, I think Catamol's there in this period. I think that Catamol was in loads of ways just a really good, smart, functional centre midfielder who could do the job he had to do on the pitch at any given time and against any reasonable opponent. They were, but without ever sort of feeling as though they were ever going to even threaten. There's a reason why Di Canio is brought in the first place and then gets sacked, is because of how the extent to which they were flirting with relegation across this period. But you would then look at the side and you go, I tell you what, they've got some players there who could rattle you and hurt you. And also, and I wonder if this is part of a theme, they might have had some players who did better against better sides. That the idea that you get maybe at times you get a little bit more space to play, or you did back then. And I think the key is actually one of those players in that period where the number of times I'd see him because I'd watched some of them when they were playing someone good and go, he looks like a player.
Yeah.
And yet then you'd watch any sort of random given game and it's like you got lost in the hurly-burly of it.
Yeah. Where are we drinking then at this period? Obviously Berry and Rye. We'll talk extensively about sound food and drink after Man City, but we're drinking there. Where else are we going?
Well, we went. I mean, there was a lot of hope and anchor
In this period.
because of the pool tables, and actually there was quite. The pools had such a massive resurgence, like Q Sports in general. Really, like you can actually, you can go so many places now. It was actually quite rare at that point.
It was hard to
It was a
find,
bit of a- so yeah, we'd be there.
We used to go to a loft, if you remember, and check on the share prices and pay a bit of pool.
Oh yeah, the hotel. Yeah. Pubs wise, like pubs. I'm not sure actually when I think about it. Where did we? Yeah, well,
But it's the emergence of the saddle.
We're
this,
around the saddle
the saddle
in this period.
recently refurbished.
Yeah, we're around the saddle. Ye Crack
Yeah.
was heavily in the rotation across this period as well. You'd bob into there.
Well, Rigby's Lady of Man was which I think now is called Dale Street Social. Yeah. It's a decision. Was a good place to watch the game. And the following season, there was a high-handed move from someone, let's not name them, who decided we should watch it upstairs in the Cross Keys in a specially booked suite. And it all went wrong from there. It all went wrong from there.
Didn't take hole in the wall from time to time, especially
Didn't
post
take.
match around then, post match around then.
Yeah.
That's somewhere else where you were going for a pint. I'm not quite sure how often I was in Pogues.
I don't think I was
The
Pogues in a
Lion
lot.
was a standby
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah, I don't think I was Pogues in a lot that year. From memory, no. I think it was under weird ownership. I think at the time. Yeah.
Was that the sign under
By the way,
under new weird ownership?
everyone just did really well not to make a senior
I
joke.
know. We all thought
Maybe it was just too obvious.
I mean, it's a few months till it goes out. So I mean, Shipper Mitre, I think, was actually quite a relatively big. The Excelsior, one of the bluest pubs in the city.
Oh yeah, we used to.
Yeah.
That was a mistake, wasn't it? It's a good pub though, the Excelsior.
Yeah, it is,
It's
yeah.
still
Fair play to them,
remains.
yeah.
It remains now. I was in there the other day.
Dr. Duncan's.
Yeah, I would Duncan more
Dr.
at that
Duncan's.
period.
Yeah. I went last week. It's great.
Still good.
Yeah.
Still good.
After all these years.
Okay. Let's us move on. Where are we now? Sorry, I've lost my place. It's Spurs at home. I love this one. It was the 30th of March we're up to. We won 4-0 at home. This is the most convinced I've ever been that we're going to win a game of football. I did. So I think it was. It can't have been a bank holiday weekend, unless it was Easter. Was it? It might have been Easter weekend.
No, Norwich was Easter Sunday.
Right.
So
Okay. So
it just felt like one.
because it was sunny. That festival that they used to take place at the Baltic was on. I can't remember what it was called now, but it was like an emerging bands festival, and I got asked to do a panel in the morning. And it was one of those panels where I turned up not really sure what I was going to say, and then halfway through I just boxed it up. You know, when you do, you just get confidence from nowhere. And go, right, I know exactly what the city should do.
I mean, to be fair, you had walked into a New York pub earlier, just a couple of months earlier, and commentated live on the game without warning.
So I had the confidence.
Yeah, I could see a panel would be no problem.
Threshold Festival, that's what it was called. So Threshold Festival was on that weekend. I think we played the Friday, as in like a band I was playing with at the time. We played the Friday, and then I'd done the panel on the Saturday. And I remember walking into town, and the sun's glorious. It was a beautiful day, and I just thinking, we're going to fucking twat these. And then they did. They scored early. Own goal, wasn't it? Early. They we sort of forced in, and it was just great. It was just like, it was really nice. I'm just going to turn up and watch my football team win, and they did.
And I mean, has it ever not been thus when you've got Spurs? When Spurs are the challenge, you're like, well, we'll be fine then. And I think Spurs fans themselves feel that so often. Which is why the winning the trophy this season is a big deal for them. I think when literally Liverpool to win the league, you got to beat Spurs. To win the Champions League, you got to beat Spurs. Okay, we'll do that. To keep yourself going, that's because it's the right level. It's a team that is something to beat. That says something, that sends a message, that sends a statement, but also they'll kind of let you do it. And we absolutely did. I mean, the sound at the end of the game was the big thing, wasn't it? I mean, if you could bottle a sound when the crowd just roared as one, I've never I think I've never still since been in the ground and felt that, whatever that was like an animal outpouring, like we're doing this now. Because again, Spurs, you know, they're a good team. You know, and they're sort of perpetually going to be, I think, for all of our lives, going to be a good team. And you go, we'd be a good team there, but you'll say it a lot. And that is such a, it was such a great day. I think everyone's coming together as well. You know, the befores and afters. You know, we talked a little bit about. I think we've got Melia on board. Adam Melia is back on board by about Cardiff, as in like.
Important barometer.
He's accepting that he's probably not going to be heartbroken, or he's going to be, but in an interesting way, which is, as it turns out. But you know, he's enjoying the ride along with us all, and it brings so many of you people something like it. You know, and again, as you know, the age I was at, I suppose. You know, you've got different groups of people coming together. People you've just met, people you're married to, people you've known for years, people who you just met someone who has known this other person for years. Yeah. And you're suddenly all together in.
I think it's the year I met Jacko. I mean,
that's the most momentous for us all. Really. He still had all his digits at that point.
Yeah.
Fair play. Yeah.
So definitely an element of that. Everyone is now all in. Everyone now thinks it's coming together. I think the bus welcome you mentioned before against Sunderland, but everyone's all in. And then this game goes the way in which it goes, and you feel as though they are inspired by the circumstance that they find themselves in. You know, they feel on board with it, and then it is comfortable, and that's the big thing about this one. Second half, it becomes really comfortable. There is unlike the Sunderland game as previously discussed, there is just no peril whatsoever. Spurs, in that essence, just don't quite want to know. And I think that always really, really helps as well. I think Sherwood's manager at the time.
Did we beat them 4-3 the season before?
I'm not quite sure.
I think we beat them when they had Bale and like he was brilliant. It was one of those games where someone's brilliant against you, but you've won. Yeah. And I think it was something like, I think we did beat them 4-3 or maybe 4-2, and you go, well, we just knocked off the 3. Because you've taken out your threat. You've taken out the thing that, you know, we're on different trajectories now. We're going this way, you're going that way. Obviously on top of White Hart Lane, so we've scored 9 against them in the league over 2 games against a team that had every right to think that they were above us, and probably in loads of people's predictions ahead of the season were above us in their predictions. And in fact, I'm certain they were. You know, when you look at probably 9 out of 10 pundits or whoever was asked where people would finish would have had Tottenham ahead of Liverpool.
But there's start with Villas-Boas one day, then who took it? Sherwood right here.
Yeah.
In that same way that you said Sunderland had certain players who would up their game against a better team, Spurs have never really been known to kind of ruin a lot of people's coupons.
No.
So they are exactly the sort of team that you want to play at home when you feel like you've got some momentum, and if you score first, you kind of, I mean, not always, but generally speaking, you will put them to bed quite easily.
I've just remembered that 4-3 because Balotelli, is that Balotelli or is it that come after?
No,
that comes after. He scores in a 4-3, but that is obviously after. That's the tail end of Rodgers. But does anyone remember who scores a free kick in this game?
For Liverpool,
the 4th goal. Which is a bit of a clue, I guess. Gerrard's off.
Okay, hang on. Victor Moses?
No.
Coutinho?
No.
Because then I'm really quite surprised. Daniel Agger?
No.
Hang on. I feel like you're going to spoil it.
Glenn Johnson?
I was going to spoil it.
It's not Glenn Johnson, surely.
Oh, God, this is a good question.
Well, so Coutinho, Henderson?
Henderson, yeah. Jordan Henderson.
I was just saying players.
Jordan Henderson scores a free kick. So there you are. Can't keep him out the action.
Should have taken more. I mean, I think Jordan Henderson's inability to plant his standing foot after a couple of seasons later is a thesis in itself as to why he didn't become the best player in the world. But yeah, there we go. He did it all.
Had it all in his back pocket whenever he needed it, Jordan.
Yeah.
Should we go on? Let's do West Ham away a week after. Again, I watched this before the brass band gig. It just shows.
You watching Hope and Anchor.
It shows how much brass banding takes over your life. By the way, I'm glad I'm out of it. It is such a big commitment. I was playing Somewhere War, So I think I'm in St Helens, which is
remember this.
apt because Sam Allardyce is manager.
Yep.
And he's obviously one of the Wallace-mans of his generation. And it was just such hard work. It was, I don't know, it was just, they had like a team of giants and they were just pumping it forward and it was absolutely graft. And I was just made up that they come through it because it was the kind of win that you didn't associate with this team.
So my day, the most of the day I'd spent at the Royal, where my then wife was unwell, had gone to A&E, and I left to go and watch the West Ham game. With a degree of sanction, but when you look back, you think maybe slightly unwilling sanction. So I think I came and met you, Neil, at this point, while the A&E wait was going on the basis that, well, it's not going to speed up the wait if I stay.
How's your wife? What wife?
Yeah. So I think you make your decisions, don't you? And in a season like this, you make some bad ones, I suppose. Always fine, by the way. It wasn't like it wasn't.
Imagine if she was that.
It wasn't a traumatic. It wasn't like a traumatic brain injury or anything. That I wasn't walking away from the doctors on the operating table. But it wasn't great. But you're not going to get this again, are you? Which I think may have been something that I said. The details of the game are a bit more clouded for me on this one.
Gerrard gets two penalties.
Two penalties. He did that a couple of times, didn't he?
2 pens. I remember, is there a Carroll goal ruled out? Or
Yeah, Carroll's is just a fucking nightmare in the game.
He is, but to your point before we deal with it, we deal with it a lot of the time by hanging on for dear life and backing each other up, but that's
then
what we
bring
do.
Carlton Cole on as well, which just felt like
Come on.
off. Yeah.
Carlton Cole was a bit of a thing. Just obviously.
Sure, we got linked with him for a bit.
Yeah, Hodgson wanted to sign. Well, no, I think Benitez wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, that's another really good example of a footballer. There was a while when he was a byword for almost like a bit of a joke. But he'd been such a talent at Chelsea.
Yeah.
Seen as like, and I think someone now I'd say maybe Danny Welbeck is a good example of like. You get to be the sort of a shining star briefly at United, then seen as not good enough, and now you're a veteran of the game and hugely respected. And I think he's probably at this point there.
The season after this, because we'd been linked with him, and I think we were still being linked with him. When I was working at C Tickets, we'd sponsored a West Ham United game in the League Cup because we used to do West Ham's ticketing. And part of the deal was, as the sponsor, was you got to name the man of the match. Who was that American defender West Ham had at the time? I think he was a right back. He was an American defender, and he scored twice against United, right? And West Ham won the game. Because I was going to meet the player, I picked Carlton Cole. And I remember someone said that when it got announced, Cameron Brady went, "Who the fuck picked him?" And it was you. It was me, yeah. It's the second time I'd done that because because a few seasons before that, we sponsored a Stoke game and Stoke had won, but Stephen Wright was playing for them. And again, he wasn't a man of the match, but the perk to me was kind of meeting him.
Yeah.
So I gave it to Stephen Wright and it got announced on the tannoy, and it was a collective what? And apparently, when they told Stephen Wright he got man of the match, he said, "Oh right, Liverpool fan did the picking, did they?" Yeah. So yeah, if you ever get a job in ticketing and you sponsor a game, do that.
In those unlikely circumstances.
It's
yeah.
Well, you never know. You never
know.
I mean, I've left the game now, so there's a big gap. So
in terms of goals I've celebrated in the pub, Hopenhagen's got another really strong candidate for this, by the way, but with Lallana in the 5-4. But of goals I've celebrated in the pub, the Gerrard winner, the second penalty in this is very, very highly ranked. And certainly, and it probably is the award-winning intense celebration for a penalty scored that you're not on the ground for. I'm always a bit quite calm around penalties, you know what I mean? Like, my general view is when the person is stepping up, they should just put it in the back of the net, if you know what I mean. And, you know, there are obvious sort of different types of that, e.g. 1 after 2 minutes of the Champions League final, don't get me wrong. But I'm always a little bit like, yeah, all right, you scored a pen, you celebrate the moment the pen's given. Then your general demeanour is, this is going to get put in the bottom corner, great, but we get on with our lives because there's more football to deal with. Genuinely, that is my sort of thing. When Gerrard scored this, oh my God. And it wasn't even because, you know, when I'm all in I know we missed one at United, but we're now all firmly in the position of we trust Steven on penalties, and we trust him on big moments, and we trust him.
Yeah, you just had too many United. They ran out of it.
Exactly.
It is a big deal, you know, I think, to score 2 penalties in a game.
Yeah.
I think because you have that whole, you know...
Do I put it where I put it then?
The whole, you know, anxiety of the whatever that book's called, the goalkeeper's anxiety at a penalty kick, where you think, well, is he going to go left? Well, he thinks I'm going to go left, so I'll go right. But is he going to think that? And it just gets into your head. So to do it twice successfully, I think is a really big deal.
And it'll be in my
and to win the game like that.
Exactly, and that's the thing. But also, it felt like a game. It genuinely felt like a goal that needs to be scored, because the two things were true at once. One, you had a massive amount of belief in this team, and two, well, and as an adjunct to that, you could see the fight that they were putting in a lot of these away games. But the other thing was, imagine they don't score the penalty to go to. Imagine your talismanic captain doesn't score the penalty to go 2-1 at this moment.
So many of those moments. Imagine the thing that happened doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling actually that we were joined by my wife from A&E at that point, and it was like a just sort of, we're celebrating everything, aren't we? You know, it's all, everything's
in my head. She's got the gown on. On a drip.
It was nowhere near as serious as I've made it out. So yeah,
Feast is still there.
I mean, I suppose you think of all of these games, and this is, you know, negatively, you think things like West Ham away is a test, is a tough game, you know, and we've seen the 2 title-winning seasons that I've sort of lived through as an adult. Liverpool have just smashed the league, basically, and I don't know how I'll cope again with a sort of close one, you know, where, I mean, imagine winning a close one would feel unbelievable, and you get so many of these moments where you do win, where you have to go somewhere, and you know. You haven't got anything spare, you haven't got anything in the tank, and you know, we've been doing that and come up short so many times in.
So where are we behind City at this point, or behind Chelsea?
Tell me. So beat West Ham. LFC history are very good at league table after this game. Click it to be the league table.
They're very good all.
Save the world.
Well, we're top now. Top by 2 points.
Same number of games as Chelsea.
Yes, sorry. And then City played 2 less in that annoying way. They're 4 behind. So it's in City's hands. Yeah. Well, it's in both clubs' hands because we're playing each other. But yeah, they're 4 points behind us, with 2 games in hand. Chelsea are 2 behind us, same play.
And so when we win the game that day,
and we scored 90 goals by this point.
Yeah, when we win the game that day, it's because of the other part of it. Maybe why this is the celebration. We're top. It's top. Yeah. That's what it means. It means top at this point.
But also the goals scored. Like we've scored 90.
Arsenal got 56.
City've got 84. And you go, well, that's your leading indicator. There's your 2 teams. Yeah, they're the ones who matter.
Yeah, massively. The next one's City, isn't it?
Should we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big one of them.
Yeah, I was. My memory. I mean, I have told this story before, so apologies to Neil, but I was in absolute bits at this game, and so I used to be in a lounge with Rob. I got there pretty early. So I used to come
As
up.
You do.
I used to get a coach up from Nottingham, so I wasn't in charge of when I got to the ground. So because they all wanted to drink for 3 or 4 hours, I was often at the ground 3 hours before the game. And I'm with Rob, and he's got his kids on the screens and all that sort of stuff. And I am at such a nervous wreck. And I remember going, saying to Rob, I'm just going to go to the toilet. And I took a copy of Esquire to the toilet, which I had in my bag. And I just sat in there and I was reading it just to take my mind off this game because I was so nervous. I remember reading an interview with Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones. And he told this, I got really lost in it. He told this story about he was in LA and someone saw him, because he's so recognisable, someone saw him and they waved to him and then got run over and killed. And Peter Dinklage, in the rest of the interview, is saying how he couldn't believe that the last thing that bloke saw was him, and that he recognised him and he waved to him, and then he got hit by a truck or something.
Things have taken a turn, John.
Yeah, and I remember.
I was expecting Peter Dinklage. Yeah.
I remember reading this, but I'd forgotten about the game, and at some point I thought, oh yeah, we have a game on. I got engrossed in this insane story that Peter Dinklage was telling in Squire. And about an hour later, I left. I was in the cubicle for an hour, just trying to read a magazine. And I don't know what Rob thought would happen to me, but just trying to. I remember specifically walking into the ground. The steward said, "Good luck." Like, and that felt like a personal, like fucking hell.
It was big.
Yeah, you're normally kind of neutral, or at least we're in. But it's like you're saying that to me. You're not bothered about yourself, and it seemed like it seemed quite a lot on me, and I just remember being in absolute pieces because they were such a good side and we were so near. And then the game itself, I mean, they were incredible, weren't they? They were.
From
second half.
From second half, I've never seen a team. I've never been as scared. I've never thought, wow, they were unbelievable. Jacko, Silva, I used like, wow. Yeah. They can create, they can score. They're all over us. They absolutely more.
And they were away from home, and it looked. It looked.
The thing about the second half was I've just never, and it may have happened since. Maybe we've done it since. I just don't think so. And again, we've talked about in this run of games, unlikely scorelines, football feeling like a different thing. And I think this is one of the reasons why this is my favourite season. Is I do feel as though it's a bit of a year and a moment where football is becoming something a little bit different. And I don't think that's just for me. I think the game is shifted a little bit. I just could never remember how an opposition team having the ball in our box as much. Yeah. Like they would not. And why is no one doing
1-2s?
Yeah,
in our box.
Why is no one doing something about this, including them? Why isn't one of them doing the decent, having a fucking shot or scoring and put us out of our misery? And I just the ball in the corners of the penalty area, and it just living in the corners of the penalty area, and yet 1-2s, touches, things around the corner, and yet never quite becoming a problem.
We defend our box really well. You know, we are last ditch so many times. You know, it's a real backs to the wall thing. I think they turned us around, obviously, but in some ways at times in those big games, I think it helps you if you're defending the Kop. And look, I'm a massive advocate of breaking that whole thing and just going now and again, let's do it the other way around.
And watch us score 2 goals in
20
minutes.
I think we're great at the Annie Road end, and especially now with the there's fucking loads of them. There's loads of us there, and they're very vocal. I think sometimes the sort of second half into the Kop thing, it's almost like a tradition rather than actually something that's born out by experience, at least for the footballers that you've got. And also we're great, we'll score at either end, and I think just doing that sometimes would be great. And I think this one was one where you get to feel like you're the Kop's sucking a goal in, well maybe the can blow one out. You know, you get the feeling that you are defending our thing, which is sacred to us, and we're not going to let you past, or we're not going to let you past quite as much as you need to get past, because they do get past.
It's second half. But the first half, let's be clear, Liverpool are absolutely tremendous for 25-30 minutes.
I loved the Sterling goal in that. I've never quite seen a goal like it before or since. Yeah. Where he just goes, this is hard, so I'm just going to shift it a yard and then kick it in. It's like he's playing another sport. I don't know what the sport is. You know, in darts, where they block themselves, so they move themselves along the hockey and throw it in.
Adjust. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah. He goes, I can't get there. I'll just move over. Bam.
Yeah. Then treble 20.
Yeah. That's what he does, and he makes it look so easy. I don't know why more people don't do it.
Yeah.
And he's about 12.
By effectively adjusting less than a yard, he changes the entire angle of the
I think
just gets an open goal.
Diogo Jota is probably the closest I've seen to being someone who does that. Who's got that appreciation of, Fowler maybe before it as well, of well, it just goes there and then it's easier, and then I'll score.
Yeah, manipulate it. But it was some finish, but the atmosphere in there is unbelievable. And that was, you talked about coach meets before, Steve. That was the best one up to then, I've thought, and probably the best one I knew. up to that point really for the game and we just knew how big it was. The stewards.
Everyone knew if we won that, it's in our hands.
Yeah.
And it's really near to the end of the season. It felt like, in that way that you kind of settled leagues back then by winning those big games.
Yeah, I remember Arsenal winning at Old Trafford.
And if you won that, it felt like you were pretty much home and hosed.
Yeah, Cantona scoring against Newcastle.
Yeah, you had the big game, and that was a defining game, and you won it, and that's it. I just remember Silva being unreal. I just remember thinking, God,
fuck off.
And they had Milner as well, didn't they?
Milner comes on second half.
Dzeko's brilliant. Yeah,
Milner's unreal. Dzeko.
Just thought, and people, maybe younger people watching this will think that the City thing really started with Guardiola, but it didn't, because they were
still have phenomenal players.
They had a great, and there'd
was a really good manager as well.
Yeah.
There would be players of that in that team that would get into the best City team of the last.
Well, Yaya Toure is arguably in the best ever Premier League 11.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
If someone picked him in
But
there,
the case for Silver,
but John, in this game, he didn't want to know. He goes off on 25. He doesn't want to know.
Oh,
That's why they improve. Is because the Yaya Toure, I think his head's absolutely battered. He's got no idea where Sterling is. When we're dominant in the first half, Toure genuinely is an absolute passenger in the game. He goes off injured and they then began to look a little bit better. I think they ended up with, this is the funny thing, I think Toure is, by the way, in the all-time Premier League 11, but I think weirdly the position he should probably be in is if it's in a 4-2-3-1, he's in the middle of the three. I think he was a deeper line midfielder for them, and we just had Sterling around him, and he just could not cope with what Sterling was doing, where he was. He didn't know where he was, and I think they bring someone who's a bit more of a positional specialist on for him, and it sort of stops that flow a little bit of us being able to hurt them again and again. The atmosphere is so big. It's amongst the first times in a league game I can ever remember the Anfield crowd genuinely barracking the opponent when they have the ball. And in any sort of league game from minute one back then, or full stop in domestic football, you just didn't really hear that from anybody.
Yeah, it was a league game that felt like a European night.
Yeah, and every part of that aspect.
I think, wasn't it a 12:30 kickoff? It
was very sunny.
I think
it's
2 o'clock on a Sunday.
I think it's early. The other thing to say is as well is, so when we are much the better side first half. Second half, they come out, they have that 20-minute period. But my point is, it was a 20-minute period. Yeah. It just felt like the longest 20 minutes of your life because they would not get the fuck out of our penalty area. And then it turns, and then it's like a 50-50 game of football again. It's not been it hadn't been a 50-50 game of football, and then that's what it just becomes.
It's not that the Coutinho goal doesn't make it. Doesn't change the game. The game has changed and it's become 50-50. And then you're like, well, who scores next wins. Yeah. And all of that is on him. All of that pressure is there essentially.
I bet if you said to him what was the greatest moment of your career, he would pick that goal.
You think?
I think it was. I just remember because he'd really emerged in the last few months.
I'm not sure he would, and I'm quite sad that he wouldn't. And I think that's my.
I think he should. I remember.
You think he was kidding himself?
I remember that celebration where he ran off and his eyes were closed, and it was just, oh my God.
Well, by that point he's picking him and Sterling, and he's figured out the ways. Joe Allen drops out, so he's playing centre mid with Gerrard behind him, who's a great footballer, but he's not Rodri. He's not playing it in that way, so he's having to do so much work. Yeah. But then he's still stepping up in these big moments. It's something.
But those players, you mentioned those players: Sterling, Sturridge, Suarez, Gerrard, Coutinho. If you'd have just said those even 5 months before, when we lost away at Hull, it doesn't have the same gravitas. And then when we say it now, 12 years on, you're like, well, there's some of the greatest players of their generation. Sure. You didn't know it at the time.
Well, apart from Suarez, there was sort of question marks about all of them.
Either too young, too old, too injury prone. Yeah. So exactly. Yeah, it was sort of a misfit. Six in a way, but ultimately, it all came together so well. And and
it was like a heist movie. Like when each one's got their own little skill, like in a Magnificent Seven or a Dirty Dozen, and you kind of get them all together because no one else will have them, and then they suddenly do that.
But the manager's finding a way to blend it all together in a really impressive way. And, it doesn't work out for him at Liverpool ultimately, and he sort of moves on. And I would argue he's had a good career since then. You know, I think he's good at Leicester until he isn't. And listen, look at the state of Leicester, and now he's obviously winning a lot of Celtic, but people say big wow. But you know, he's their most successful manager of modern times, even at the time they've been very successful. But then he's just getting so much out of them, and he's leading them. He's doing the thing before every game at the moment where he pulls out a letter from one of the parents, and you can say, oh, that's quite cheesy, but they find it really inspiring. Apparently, you know, Coutinho was in tears hearing from his mom and stuff like that, and then they're going out and opening games like this, so it's fucking working.
Yeah, no, they're all there. It's a great photograph, and it is difficult because the way where it ends up for the manager and a few ways in which he snookered himself at different points in his career by virtue, I think, of wanting to be a great manager. I think the ultimate flaw in the manager in the round of his whole career is that he genuinely wants to be a great manager, and he talks some of it, and then at times he just talks in the wrong way, and that's why I don't think he is as respected as he should be. And that sort of pains. And again, I think your point there about the young footballers in this team at this time utterly buy into him.
Yeah.
What I think, or what someone 10 years older than me thinks, doesn't actually matter as much. They're bought in, but at the point where the pressure comes on, that does matter.
Yeah.
What more jaded people may or may not think, and that's one of the things that I think has done for him in terms of a bit of wider perception. There is a photograph, and it's one of my favourite photographs of any Liverpool manager of him on the pitch after Coutinho scores, and he's bent, but he's on his tiptoes, and he's not quite down to his knees, but he wants to be on his knees, and you can see the arc of his feet, and you can see like it's got an unbelievable level, and I'm well aware of the fact that people will think that this is hyperbole. It's got this coiled physical grace and power that he is all in on the belief, and this is the other thing in this period as well. No one at Liverpool, separate to the games, is talking about it in terms of still one of the reasons why which comes at the end of this game, we cannot let this slip, is by virtue of getting so close into there, what Gerrard was saying, it was almost in a really weird way one of the first times anyone at Liverpool's gone publicly into a microphone, we can win this league. And obviously it was undeniable at that point, and when they put it that close to Gerrard. But all the way through, everyone is genuinely straight back and stuff. There's but the great thing that Torre does at the start of the season. But everyone's just really focused on the next game. All the obvious cliches are coming out. But what you'd see from him on the pitch, from Gerrard taking his top off against Fulham to all this stuff, it was like that all of the belief was on the pitch. And then at that moment when Rodgers is on the pitch, and he's not posing for the photograph, he's utterly overcome. The photograph is capturing the moment of him thinking, as Martin says, this feels like a decider. And him also being able to think, and this is a big deal professionally, I've just managed the team that's won the title decider. I can't remember his order of subs because, my God, I was overwrought with emotion. But as that game's wore on, his team has wrestled back control of the game from this force of nature that was driving everyone insane, and they've grabbed it back. They've actually been a mature football team in those ways. It's not just that they've gone 2-0, and then it's not lucky, the Coutinho moment. It's been a 50-50 game for 10 minutes. And he celebrates because they've grabbed it back, because his boys have done this, and we're nearly there. Yeah. And go on, you're going to tell me.
No, I was just going to say the subs. He does Sturridge out for Joe Allen. I think he's trying to get control of the midfield at that point at 2 each, and I think Sturridge is sort of just injured by this point as well. He does Coutinho out for Moses. That's on the 89th minute, and then Moses gives that shit pass to get Henderson sent off. So you're just looking at that and thinking, was that necessary on 89? Really, Brendan, because I do always blame Victor Moses for that sending off.
He's giving Coutinho the applause, isn't he?
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
and then he does Sterling for Laver on 90+5.
Because the head sending off's happened and he wants another body. I think he's trying to shore it up. And let's be clear,
it's not that mad a substitution really on 89. I just.
But 5 to go with the ground, because I was cop end. I was what is the paddock? What was the paddock? I'm there. I'm right in line with the penalty area. In the ground cop end, and first and foremost, I can't stop crying. Like the emotion rattling around the ground was just overwhelming after Coutinho scored. It is the most emotional I've ever known that ground. I've known the ground to be fierce and to be vociferous, and the ground to be determined, and the ground to be all these things, the ground to be overwhelming. The 4-3 against City is a great example of it. I've known the ground to be so many unbelievable things, but for whatever reason, I just remember, to your point, the way you were pre-match, Martin, I'm overcome with emotion, and I'm looking around, and so is everybody else. Yeah. You know, I'm not alone in this, and I'm watching the game, and all I can see is Martin Skirtle fouling people and handballing it. Every time the ball comes into the penalty area, you've just checked there on the subs, I can't remember who the ref was. But to Steve's point before, again, about sometimes it helps being cop end second half. That referee, Clattenburg, he's not given a pen in front of the cop.
When your back's to the wall. Yeah, no, definitely. Absolutely. I mean, but and the Rodgers thing, I mean, he's finding this out. And I don't think we've had a manager since, Shankly, who was finding this out. Yeah. Who hadn't won a league somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, okay, so he was, in and around Chelsea maybe when they, but wasn't central in the way that, say, Paisley was to Liverpool's title. You know, so really, like, you know, even now, you know, we're saying how Slots have just adapted really well. The whole feel with Slot was like, I know how you win leagues. I've done this before. Yeah, there might be better teams than us, and it might not be a year when we win the league, but I know how you do it. Jurgen Klopp knew how you do it. Rafa Benitez knew how you do it, and that was he was probably about 4 or 5 years younger than I am now, finding these things out.
I mean, this is the thing about Rodgers, which I think people forget, was that he was what, early 40s?
Late 30s.
Late 30s, right? So the average age of a season ticket holder at Anfield at that time was 50 odd.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a guy managing who's younger than most of the people in the ground. He has no pedigree, and he says a few daft things, and he doesn't have the luxury of saying that English is his second language. So there's these things that I think people kind of took against him.
Yeah.
Because we've not often had, probably until the manager now, a manager that's come in who's, young and is seen as a little bit of a novice because people had written off the Dutch league. And I think that's why when it did fall apart, he probably had less in the bank than I think he should have had.
Yeah.
Because you had those people who used to sit around us that were 15 years older than him, and all of that sort of stuff, and just thought he's just not very good. And it was all down to Suarez and Sturridge, and nothing to do with the manager.
When it goes in if you look at 2015-16, the start of the season is bumpy but not terrible, but the West Ham result does for him at home, and Jurgen Klopp's availability does for him, and I think ultimately those are the two things that do for him, and rightly so.
If you can get a better manager,
of course, if you get a better manager, you get a better manager.
Like you get a better sense of forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the world that they operate in, that's absolutely fair. But yeah, you're right. I mean, ultimately, the latitude is not there for him in the way that it probably would have been for
and he hasn't really had the credit since, I don't think, for what he did that season.
But they break the record this game. They break the record for a number of goals Liverpool have scored in the top flight.
Yeah,
wow.
Which is just mad because they've still got 4 games left. And you think about all those great Liverpool teams, they break the record.
Yeah,
with 4 left. And it's unreal.
And they are a tremendous side. They show it this day. They get out. It was interesting before though. You were listing the players, and we've talked about it already. But you don't say Henderson. But Henderson gets sent off, and it really does damage this team at this point because he's. Well, again, you're right to point out, John. Coutinho's playing centre mid, but let's be clear: the legs in the middle of the park are Coutinho and Henderson. They are providing the legs. Lever's not in a position to be able to do it at this point in his career. Joe Allen was never that player in a number of different ways. Coutinho is really, really grafting. I want to be clear: Coutinho grafts through this season. But it was Coutinho and Henderson. They were the legs that was powering a lot of this.
And it's not hindsight. At the time we felt it. At the time we went, that's it.
When the manager said it, that he felt it. Yeah, he felt it as well. But we can't replace him, which is mad.
There wasn't another player. There's two.
It was such a small squad as well.
But there was 2 midfielders, and Joe Allen and Lucas Leiva, who are both really good midfielders who played the part during this season. So there are literally, but they're not that pair of lungs and that ability to, because one of the other things that's missed, and I mean this will feel a little bit like it's like I think Rodgers. So I've just talked Rodgers up, and I genuinely do believe it. But we're all, the other thing that's happening, I said before about football's changing, is Klopp's been doing what he's been doing at Dortmund, and no one's really brought it into England. I think this is Liverpool's first genuine pressing team. In a way, it's a little bit of your Liverpool's first Jurgen Klopp team. I think Rodgers is watching, and football managers take from each other all the time. I think he's been watching what's up. But also, it's easier now to watch what's happening in other countries. You can get the tapes, you can get the footage. Liverpool press in the 5-1 against Arsenal is for that first 20 minutes. It's about as good a video of a pressing team.
And the reason Arsenal can't cope with it is that no one else is doing it.
No one else is doing anything
They're
like
like,
it.
what the fuck is going on
Like
here?
it's cheating, yeah.
And there's an element with this side, and it does it to City in the first half of this game. And that's one of the reasons why maybe they're a little bit knackered second half, and also why City plays so well. Is first half they just run all over them. They just run all over City and go, all this time as you get to play football in this country and you get to wander around the pitch like it's all easy for you. Watch this, and they go one.
Well, second season it becomes third season for Rodgers. It becomes a sort of in post-match press conferences he talks about they played well over the press and we couldn't deal with it, and it happens all because the next season sides get onto it and go, you can play over this.
Yeah,
just play the ball over it. It's not always the solution, but it is the way you do it. I mean, I don't know. I could you say, well, if you ask Brendan Rodgers, would he say when Henderson goes, I needed to rethink what I was doing in midfield, or do we all go, no, you stick with what you do and you find your next best Henderson, or do you go, maybe you should just drop Gerrard and go Henderson, Allen and Coutinho? I mean, it would have been incredibly bold, and probably not.
Well, Lucas Allen and Coutinho.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
He was not in a position to stop Steven Gerrard.
Exactly. No, I know, but like you literally go, if you can't find the replacement, what do you do? And if it's 7 games out, you can maybe do something different, or you can try something for 1 game. But with 4 games, you've got to, you're locked in on you, and you've got to go. We're just going to go into the red zone now and see if this just holds together for us. It's just something cruel about being 4 games, and then the dead game is the one that you can play. There's something about the timing of that, and in different periods of the rules, would that have been a 3-game?
That's what I was thinking before. Does it only count as
is
one?
the games where it would have been 1 or 2? It was what it was. I mean, look, Victor Moses doesn't make him jump into the shadows.
No,
you know what I mean?
I don't mind Victor Moses, to be honest with you.
I think he could have played more in this
season. It was a toss of a pass.
It was.
For the man who just come on.
It's the pass. The pass, not the man.
I think part of it is that he has just come on. You've seen that so many times. Can't get the pace of it. The game's wild, and it's a maelstrom.
The manager, he's the squad management. He's taking Coutinho off, and Coutinho gets a standing ovation, and everyone around the ground. Back when a standing ovation meant something where everyone stands up now for anyone that they used to play for you or whatever. He actually gets, and the manager will go, well, that's great morale in the bank for this player, who maybe I think should have scored more than 4 this season. And I'd quite like him to chip in the next couple of games, maybe. You pay your money, you take your choice, and ultimately, it was a sting in the tail of a game of an amazing day.
Amazing day that wasn't over. It was one of the all-time Liverpool great nights out. I think it is fair to say.
It was. Everyone was out. Everyone was out. It was mad how the extent to which everyone was out, but also this is the period where also the Blues are out a lot of the time as well. I don't know, I haven't got on that day, but it felt like everyone was just out and about in town. There was everything. A lot of it was ended up on the street because there just wasn't enough room in places. It was. By the way, I can't get over. We should maybe spend more time thinking about how good the weather was.
It's sunny again. So it was when Boss Night was emerging. They were in Sound Food and Drink at the time, which is barely bigger than this space that we're in now. And I remember. I can't remember who was the main turn then. It might have been Mark Frith. It might have been the Mark Frith period of Boss Nights, but it was definitely before Jamie, well before Jamie. And I think at the time they were still having like original bands and stuff, and then like people doing covers, but Mark Frith was on. But I remember someone coming in with a cardboard cutout of Rita Ora, and I remember that being sort of really funny. And it was so hard to get to the bar because there were so many people. And I remember sound being brilliant and going there for an hour or so, and then it got shut down just because there was just too many people, and just going off somewhere else. And but it was beautiful weather.
It was just brilliant. It was brilliant weather. It was brilliant in the city. Everyone. And now this is the journey, and the 4 of us around this table, because you do love this season as well. You've always loved it. It is the 4 of us. I know you hosted, but we were there early, but not in a. the best part of this is it wasn't like, you know, you were thinking, oh, why do all these people now love my favourite band? It was quite the opposite. It was, I made you come and join us.
It was so if you were a cricket fan or you weren't, the 2005 Ashes was that, I suppose, when you were like, suddenly there's people, by the third test, people are into this.
Yeah.
You know, and you were like, yeah.
talking to you about Andrew
Talking,
Flintoff.
yeah, and yeah, is Simon Jones gonna get, you know, is his injury going to be an issue? And so, yeah, you just got this like, wow, the momentum building, and you know, some people want to gatekeep around stuff, and some people want to go, yeah, come on in, even if it's for this season, even if it's just for a bit. You know, Jurgen Klopp's entire Liverpool, you know, project really was about bringing people in.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, this really was a taste of what that can look like when you do it, and
it was like what happens when you have a, you know, World Cup in London and England are doing well.
Yeah.
It was like that. And I remember...
Well, yeah, even people who were relatively England resistant, like you know...
Yeah, everyone got caught up in...
Because everyone seems to be enjoying this
I remember
you know,
drinking on the street, which sounds like I'm homeless, but it's just because you couldn't get in anymore.
Yeah, it was the place with the most room.
It was. And we were out on Duke Street, and I was drinking with Jay McKenna.
It would have been sound.
And it would have been about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And the police asked us to move more onto the pavement, indicating that we were standing on the road. And I remember Jay saying to me, can you imagine when we win the league? Yeah. Because they're moving us now, you know. And I just remember thinking, this is crazy.
It was overwhelming. Everyone was out, and also the part of this then is that the people who aren't at the match are just coming out to watch it, and then they're staying out. So you go the game, and then you come to town, and it didn't matter what time you got to town. Town was absolutely bouncing. Everyone has just gone on this moment where it's kicked in and everyone's in. Everyone's just gone. Here we are now. Then. And as I say, and it was remarkably inclusive. It was really, really open. Everyone wanted a good time, and everyone was made up. Other people were coming in and being part of it as well. I think you've observed in the past, the away crowds were younger. Like this season than they have been in the previous couple of years. I think that a few had just decided he'd had enough at the start of the campaign, and so, you know, it had a genuine sort of youthful energy. And I say that in the context of the fact that I know how old we three were in that period, and Martin was a bit older again. I'm not acting like we were the young crowds, we weren't, but that energy absolutely carried you. And then coming, you know, we're not that far there, it's just there, isn't it, Duke Street, but coming into town, and it felt like town was just a little bit different as well. The previous title run was 09, and 08 has a big impact on the city in a number of different ways, but in loads of ways the full sort of nightlife hadn't caught up, and we've got, you know, in a subsequent episode of this we'll end up talking about Sound City as well. But there is this, it was a different going out scene than it had been the previous time they were close to a league title. The city was different and was on a journey. And then the other thing that was then happening around this point wasn't just that everyone in Liverpool was going out. People were coming in from all over the country to come and watch the match in Liverpool. Yeah.
Everyone liked us. Everyone liked us. I mean, I remember when we get to Sound City, and I was doing some bits and bobs there for my job, and people from Ticketmaster came up and other ticketing companies, and they were like, God, this is so much fun this season. I really hope you do it. And everyone really liked it. Yeah, everyone really liked it.
I think
the other thing as well, which is easier for me to say than certainly you two, is because it was not in the infancy of the Wrap, but it was the kind of cusp of when you both still had jobs.
Yeah.
And to me, it felt like you decided to become music journalists in 1963. do you know what I mean? And it's now 1965, and you think we could make a living out of this. You know, it's quite good. This, and so there was in amongst all of this, you were doing the shows. We were going up the tower, and that was undoubtedly part of it, because it was that emergence of kind of fan media where, you know, other people around the country didn't have to listen to it via, you know, 5 Live or Match of the Day. They could listen to it through, you know, Liverpool fans that even if they hadn't met, they felt like they were their friends. And my kind of memory of this time was a lot of people kind of just, you know, coming up to us. You didn't know us, but were just happy to see us. And then we did some events around Sound City. Was that the year we did stuff in the Blackie?
I think
No, that was
the year
the
after.
year before,
Yeah.
I think.
Before?
Yeah, we
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was just that sense of, like, we'd been to New York. This thing that had started as you know, perhaps a kind of bedroom hobby was becoming a bigger thing as well, on top of the results where Liverpool were in the league. And that was definitely part
Well,
of
one of the things that we started to do, and I think it is part of it in a different way, we started to go and do immediate post-match after the away games. We couldn't do the home games back then. We just did, like, you know, in terms of how would you do it, so we'd wait. And then by the time you get back to town, you wouldn't want to go and do it in quite the same way. But we went, like, because I remember the West Ham game, the aforementioned West Ham game, me and you went to the top of the tower, and then we went to the Saddle, which is when the night when Melia was doing, well, when we walked in, he was doing This Is How We Do It, but it was also the night when he sent
Sterling to
Yeah.
the tune of Fairground Attraction.
Yes.
Edgar Allan.
And it was the night he sent Delia out so that they could do George Michael and Elton John. Yes. It was the first time anyone had seen that, and the whole place just went to absolute pieces. When they managed with, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Daniel Melia, and then he just came in through the door with the microphone already in hand and went from there. But it was like this big broiling night out, and then we were talking about that as well with everyone. But I think everyone just wanted to feel as though they were part of the party. On the everyone liked us thing, listen, it's the time we're recording this, you know, I know it's going out later, but I don't think that's really stopped. I think that people have an online version, a social media version, where people think that Liverpool, you know, there's a version of a set of supporters or a number of sets of supporters who don't like Liverpool. But I think this is actually it's post 08, and I think this year is almost a bit of a sea change year, where the idea that we are, well, like some sort of despised thing that's got to convince the country.
I can't see, you know, working at the Liverpool Echo, and you know, we're recording this just shortly after the parade, and people will know what happened there. And the amount of calls we've had in the last couple of days from people who had come from Solihull, and Shoreham by Sea was someone today who rang and just wanted to say that people were great. There was a gentleman who uses a wheelchair, and he phoned to say, I've never known people to be as amazing as Liverpool fans were around. And I think people have felt after what happened, you know, that they needed to sort of do that even more than they usually do. But yeah, the idea that it's there in places, you know, absolutely, of course, you know, the prejudice, if you like, and I think, you know, some of that exists towards different sections of society in this country. But yeah, the overall feeling, and it was encapsulated in this season, was people were going, it looks like you're having a great time, and I want to be part of that.
I think part of what sticks in my mind in this season is the idea that everyone made a load of new friends.
Yeah.
It was like we all went to university, but we didn't. And other people that hadn't seen us for a year were like, what the fuck's happened to you? It's like, well, I've made all these new friends, and I've got all this energy, and I was talking to someone on Instagram the other day, Suze, who we met in New York. I've only met her the once when we did that show in New York, and we still follow each other, and we were having a chat about the book she was reading. I remember I met her in 2014, an Anfield Wrap show in New York. She now lives in London. I'm supposed to be meeting her and her fella in a couple of weeks, and it's like, she's just one of those examples of the friends you collected during this year. Yeah. And I remember my old boss at work, who would never pay compliments to you directly. He was one of those people. But I remember him saying to someone else, something happened when he met those guys. Something happened, and he was better. He's much better at his job. He was different. He just thought more things were possible than perhaps before. And so it reminds me of that thing of when you go to university and then you come back home at Christmas and no one fucking recognises you because you've turned into a goth. But I didn't have to turn into a goth, thankfully. But it was a transformative time.
It was
for people, wasn't it?
I mean, and the mistake I think that I made, I suppose, was that the next season was going to be the same. And what, you know, I think the high watermark then is what, Spurs away, and you go, this is going to be the same. And then it just slowly dissipated, quickly dissipated.
Whereas actually, to continue the metaphor, that's where they started giving you more essays, and you thought,
Yeah.
Actually, I'm here to
Should have really
degree
enjoyed
on,
first
like,
year.
yeah.
Halls was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Probably need to get this degree now.
But anyway, that's all to come. We've got 4 more games to go that we're going to do in the next part, but I hope you enjoyed that very much. We're in the Red Lion, by the way. Good pub.